Welcome to my channel, fellow freaks, geeks, and nostalgic 90s nerds. Here, we'll talk about all kinds of things, from slime to slashers and everything in between. We'll cover it all, from the 90s to horror and beyond. Books, movies, TV, pop culture, everything you could think of, we'll talk about it here. Today, we are reviewing The Nest. I'm so pumped up about this book. It was such a fun read. So right after the intro, I'll see you back here and we'll break this thing down. It's about to start, gut buckets, so hold on to your butts. May the force be with you. I'll be back, and get ready to engage. Mutant cockroaches! No! Alright guys, so we're going to talk about The Nest, and yes, mutant cockroaches, that's what it's all about. I love this read, as I said in my little intro. So this book is from 1980. I read the copy, the re-release from Valiant Court Books. Love this. I love that they're re-releasing some of these old titles that you would have a hard time finding otherwise. And it's got a new introduction by Will Erickson, who is so knowledgeable about all things paperbacks from hell, all things horror fiction, and in fact, he runs a blog, Too Much Horror Fiction. So check it out if you want to learn more about books like these, and not only the books themselves, but the amazing cover art. And this book is no exception. This is the awesome artwork on the book. Of course, this is a library copy. I don't own this, unfortunately. I'd love to buy a copy, by the way, or at least find, somehow if I could stumble upon an actual old school copy, that would be amazing too. But as you guys can see, the awesome greens and blues on the cover and that roach on top of the mound of dirt, just looking so creepy, so disturbing, so ugh. And it's funny, before we get into the actual review of the book, I even said this on Instagram. Perhaps this was a bad idea for me to read in the warmer months, because it's just getting warmer here in Louisiana. And you know, it's kind of ripe for roaches here in Louisiana during this time of year. And yeah, I am not exaggerating or making this up. I saw 2 roaches in my house while I was reading this book. Like, I wasn't physically reading, I saw a roach, but so I'd put the book down, or I'd read a few hours before, walk into the bathroom, and there's a roach. Luckily, it was kind of stunned. Maybe it was on the way to death already. I don't know, but it was already kind of taken care of. Of course, I didn't kill it. I made Paul kill it, and I was like, get it out of here, please. So I didn't have to touch it. But then a few days later, I was still reading the book, and there was one dead in our kitchen, which is near the back door. So it would be easy for a roach to get into the house from there, because we sometimes leave the door open for our dog to go in and out. So yeah, you know, kind of creepy if you don't like bugs. And I'm sitting here reading this about freaking roaches eating people, and yet I'm seeing real life roaches in my house at the same time. So perhaps not the best time of year. Maybe this would have been better in the winter for me, because, you know, up north it might be, you know, not a problem for you guys, but for us down here in the south, yeah, it's a thing. It's a problem. I see them all the time. I saw one last night, not in the house, but outside, and I was like, oh, get it away from me. But luckily, reading about them doesn't disturb me as much as seeing the real thing. But it was a gory, creepy, insane read. Like, there was a lot of gross shit in here, pardon my French, but there's a lot more offensive things in here than the word shit, I gotta tell you that. And speaking of that, there are 2 guys who get their freaking dicks chewed off. I mean, it's more than just their dicks, like their whole body gets chewed up. So if you guys cannot handle reading about bugs that burrow into and also eat animals and humans, then I would advise not picking this book up. But if you think that you can handle it and you're not going to be too disturbed and grossed out, or maybe you want to be disturbed and grossed out, maybe you should read it, because I had a freaking good time reading this. And by the way, one of the great surprising things about this book is, yeah, I mean, it's got a pulpy type of subject matter. Mutant roaches, come on. It kind of, you know, banks off of the whole animal attack subgenre, which kind of started off with Jaws and then the rats. I have not read the rats, by the way. I would love to read that, but I have read Jaws. Jaws isn't that good. This is way better than Jaws, to be honest. Jaws, there's a whole bunch of side story stuff that is just unnecessary and boring. Although I love the movie Jaws. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. That's neither here nor there, but I gotta say, this book was better than Jaws in terms of just the entertainment factor, and it was so well written. And that sounds so strange, but it was one of the biggest pros of this book, to me, is some people might think it's actually over the top, because at times the writing is almost poetic, and almost like very flowery, and it's actually got some beautiful and haunting prose, and that is the exact opposite description you would expect from a book about mutant giant cockroaches. But alas, yes, I gotta admit, this was wonderful. And that was a great surprise because, I mean, I heard Will Erickson say that this was well written, but I just didn't realize how much I would love the writing and just the description and the word usage. I just thought it was fantastic. As I was reading, I'm like, this is just gold. And I've marked a few, just a few. It looks like more than a few though, doesn't it? I marked a few passages and sentences to read to you guys. None of this is spoilers, by the way, because although I did give away that multiple people, as in a few, more than one, get their dicks chewed off, I am not really giving anything away because a lot of people get eaten up, and that's not really the main plot of the story. The main plot of the story is the town going to survive this onslaught of roaches? And also, if they do survive, how will they take care of the problem? So that's the big question while you're reading. How will they overcome? So I'm not going to tell you if they do overcome or not. And so that, in that way, I'm not spoiling anything for you guys. But I will give away some of the awesome descriptions. But believe me, there's plenty more to discover for yourself if you've decided to pick it up after I've, given this review. And I hope you do, because I gotta say, I can't even tell you how much I enjoyed this read. I know I'm gushing and going on and on, but let's talk about gushing in a different way. Gross goo gushing, gross blood gushing. Let's get into the quotes and stuff. But before I do, quickly, I do want to say it was just such a hoot reading this. And I'm not going to just say it was funny and haha, because there was some really legit scary things in this read where you were like, oh my god, I'm really just put off. Because you imagine, like, bugs going into your ears, bugs crawling into, your orifices and stuff. Like, I don't feel comfortable saying that, but, like, I mean, it talks about it in the book, so it is what it is. It's actually talked about in here and described at great length. But to me, not only was it the non-serious type of zany adventure I was looking for, I say non-serious as in, like, there were some parts that just made me smile and smirk. But on the other hand, on the flip side, it was very serious, and you were actually scared for people in the book. And when innocent people got eaten up, you were just devastated because no one was safe from these roaches. The roaches didn't really have a preference on who they wanted to eat or what they wanted to eat. They even end up eating clothes and, like, belt buckles and stuff like that, even shoes, I think. So they eat everything, the bones and all. So they're not really picky eaters, and they have an insatiable appetite. They just have a monstrous appetite that just cannot be satisfied. And so I think that's one of the most appealing parts of the book, is that you're just like, oh my god, there's no way to stop these guys. And because they're mutants, they're, a little more advanced than regular roaches. And I gotta say, I mean, I know a lot about the roaches because the one bad part about the book is there's a middle part, and actually also another part a little later on, which is shorter, that goes into great scientific detail about why bugs might mutate, why mutations happen in nature. And it goes into even terminology, bug terminology. It goes into termite behavior because, in this book, they're saying that these roaches, these mutants, basically took on some characteristics of termites and other social bug creatures. Because usually roaches aren't as social as these are in this book. And so, obviously, these are a made up version of roaches. There are no mutant roaches like this, luckily. So although I saw those two roaches in my house, I did not get eaten alive. I'm safe. I'm okay. They were not mutants, thank goodness. They were not spawns of hell or anything. Alright, so let's get into the quotes now. Alright, I'm very excited. So, right off the bat, as I said earlier, Will Erickson wrote the new introduction, and he sets things off on a good note. He really sets a great tone for the reader, because he gives this wonderful anecdote, this nice little story about when he discovered the nest in a bookstore, and what the bookseller who owned the store told him as he was checking out this book. I'm not going to spoil it because it's a great line that the bookseller tells Will Erickson, and I just think it's a wonderful story, and he told me on Instagram that it's true. So guys, check out his new intro. It really gets you pumped, and it's a good beginning to getting into the book. I was already off on, like, an excited note when I read his intro. So then, on page 1, I marked 2 passages already. It says,
"Under a luminous moon, the garbage dump on Yarkey Island off Cape Cod began to shudder and vibrate grotesquely. It might have seemed an illusion of the moonlight on the quiet Atlantic that serene summer night, but the strange phenomenon near the beach was no mirage. It was as unmistakable as it was mysterious and ominous. Sometimes an unearthly bulge appeared like a tumor or festering pustule that seemed ready to split open, almost as if a buried alive victim were straining to push out of a moldy grave. A viewer might, with stopped heart, expect to see the excrescence burst and a cadaverous hand lift a bony claw into the night."
Already, page 1, it's freaking marvelous. It's just epic, honestly. The writing is just, some people might think the poetic writing might not work, but I feel like in this case it adds to it, because otherwise a story that was poorly written about cockroaches, I'm not sure I'd want to read it. But this, like, the language adds just another layer for me personally. And although you might think it's like cheap, like, oh, they're just trying to be all over the top and like, oh, I'm so smart, but I don't think of that at all. I don't think that was Gregory A. Douglas's intent at all, by the way. Jackson is so confused about the giant roach. And I will tell you where the giant roach came from, because I did not go out and buy it. My parents already had a giant inflatable roach pool float. Why is that? I mean, that is kind of weird. Most families don't have that. Well, my family's a little different, and we throw a big Halloween party every year. And we've got a bug wall in our house that has like all kinds of bug decorations and bug movie posters. And it stays up for a lot of the year, but we have more bug stuff in the attic, and we found this in the attic today when I went over to see my parents. So yeah, I will show you footage of the other bugs we found if you guys are interested. Wait till the end of the video. Please watch all the way through and check it out. And comment below if you would like to see more of my parents' Halloween decorations and more behind the scenes stuff about, you know, all of that, because it's a big old thing, all of our Halloween decorations over there. So back to the quotes. Alright, so this is like a little vulgar, so please, I'm sorry, but so they're basically describing what the guy who's being chewed alive is thinking, and he says he's thinking, have kids? His cock and balls have been chewed away on this crazy island. And yeah, that's just vulgar. It's not really eloquent or anything, but I was like, that's a hilarious line. I like that. Also, it's just unnerving that you're going through this guy's final thoughts, and that's what he's thinking. And then it goes on to say,
"Nerves in the man's head were jangling like fireworks. He felt lightning forking out of the blackness of his eyes. Bugs were burrowing through his brain. Their bites were like flints striking fire in his skull. The edges of his brain were browning and curling up, frying in pain. And buzzsaws below were cutting his body apart, separating his limbs, slicing away chunks of his organs."
And this is another cool thing about the book. So I mentioned that some of these books pop up after books like Jaws became popular, books like The Rats. Speaking of Jaws, there are so many references to sharks in this book. It's almost like they're comparing the roaches and the horde of roaches, because it's a whole nest, as the title suggests. It's not one roach, it's many of them working as a group. And so there are a lot of comparisons to sharks and how their behavior is like sharks and how they look like a shark coming at you type of thing. So in this passage, for instance, and this is just one example because it happens many times in the book where he references sharks and compares it to the horde of roaches.
The cockroaches they had just so narrowly eluded were more formidable than any rats he had ever seen. If those bastards, those crawling sharks, ever got out of the woods into Yarkey's homes, the carnage would create a ghost island.
Again, more beautiful language, which feels so weird to say about this book, but it's true nonetheless.
The roaches were ready. Suddenly an ice pick stabbed the man in one eye, then the other, so that he never saw what it was he had been calling to in the woods. He crashed down with an expression of amazement and stupefaction that was soon the grin of a skull on a deathbed of crimson leaves.
I just think it's amazing. I really love the frickin' book. I can't even say enough how much it's wonderful.
The Laidlaws before Sheriff Amos Tarbell's eyes looked like two cadavers in an anatomy class held in hell. The bloody bones made a gruesome tableau of skeletons driving a jeep.
Because they were eaten in a jeep. And again, all these deaths and gruesome passages aren't really giving anything away. People get freaking eaten alive by roaches. That's what happens. You know that's what happens, like, very early on in the book. It's really not major spoilers at all. So if you guys are mad at me, I'm sorry, but I just don't consider these major spoilers.
Words jostled and echoed in his head. He heard the Harvard man saying you couldn't hate the cockroaches any more than you could hate a runaway locomotive. Wrong, Reed Brockshaw snarled. It might be true that Mother Nature was a crazy old lady with evil appetites who programmed her bastard robots, but to him the cockroaches were palpable enemies, personal enemies, despicable enemies he was to kill with his own hands. He wished they were man-sized so he could grip them in his fingers and choke them to death. He wanted to hear them wheeze and cry out, hear their dying moans as if pleading for mercy. The insects seemed not individual creatures but connected organs of a huge, reaching, blotchy beast. They flowed over the torn bodies of Blanche and Harvey like a living lava, a lava of clicking teeth and mandibles and grasping legs, a lava erupting from the same maggoty, satanic pit.
If you love horror, I can't see why you wouldn't love this, honestly. And if you're not too freaked out by bugs, I can understand if you're, like, really anti-roaches. And trust me, I've had some personal experiences with roaches that are pretty disturbing and gross and disgusting and make me want to barf, but I still could read this book. I mean, once I remember I reached my hand into a cabinet when I was getting some cereal as a kid. I pulled my hand out, I felt something on my hand, and it was a roach on like, my arm a little above my hand. I screamed, flung the roach away, and I was like, oh my god, and I was really just grossed out, and I always got scared reaching into the cabinet after that. Luckily, the cereal was in airtight containers. It wasn't even in the boxes, so it couldn't get into the cereal at all, but I've actually had more stories about roaches than just that one story, but I don't really want to talk about it, or I might have actual nightmares with the stories combined with this book and everything. That might not be a good thing. So let's not dredge up the roach past right now. Let's just talk about the nest. Alright, here's some more quotes. I'm almost done, I swear.
To him, the formation of the roach heads, their eyes, mandible, mouths, gave them the appearance of laughing monsters, monstrosities mocking all the humans. This, he thought, was what the demons of hell must really look like, roaches. Satan himself, a deformed giant roach.
No, Satan, no! It's Satan! Not today, Satan. Ridiculous. I'm so glad we finally got use out of this roach pool float because it was just sitting around in the attic probably for years. So thanks, Dad, for being so awesome and loving Halloween as much as me that you bought a roach pool float for our Halloween decorations, but we never ended up using it. Now it is used. I appreciate my dad being so cool. No! Back, you beast! You spawn of Satan. And then on page 248, so there's a middle section, as I said, all about scientific stuff. Then the scientific stuff starts again on 248. I'm like, come on, no. Get back to the action. And there is a lot of action in the book. I don't want to make it seem like there's so much scientific talk, because it's really just 2 sections. But still, those sections do drag on. But for the majority of the story, it is fast-paced. It is in your face. It is really well written. It's just that scientific stuff that could have easily been left out. It didn't need to be in there. You know, I think the reader didn't need all that background about bug biology, and I don't think that was even needed. We're getting to, I think, my last quote here. A scientist had to consider, maybe nature had created destructive creatures like these roaches precisely to start wiping out the world as it had come to be. Maybe nature wanted a clean slate, to destroy what man had become and done to the earth. Maybe the roach hunger which he, as a man, so readily deplored as feral, was in more universal fact nature's yearning to start over. So there you go, there's the, it's not spoiling anything, but perhaps that's the underlying message here that, you know, nature's coming to take back what's hers. Nature's coming to take back over. Screw you, man! That's what these books are all about. And that's nothing, you know, new. I think that's kind of universal in these types of animal attack books. So 4.5 stars for me. The only reason it lost the half star was the scientific parts I discussed. And honestly, even though I actually rated some books higher. This was just as much fun and just as good. So some other paperbacks from Hell type of books I read recently this year. Hellhound, also loved that. Coincidentally, that's also about an animal who's kind of crazy, but it was a lot different than this, but it was also very well written, and that's by Ken Greenhall. I loved Hellhound. I should have done a whole video review on that. It was amazing. That was also one of my favorite reads of the year. That one actually got 5 stars from me because it was just perfect in every way. There was no drawn-out scientific part, which was a little hard to get through. That one was just perfection. And I also read, which I gave 5 stars, The Elementals by Michael McDowell, which I freaking loved. That's not about animals at all, but, you know, compare this with that. Both were more serious in that, you know, there was really nothing in Hellhound specifically that was funny. And also, same goes with The Elementals. There were some really creepy scenes in The Elementals, and I just loved it. I gave both of those 5 stars. This one only loses at half because of that scientific stuff, or else it would be just as good as those. And honestly, I like I said, I had the same exact good time with this as those. So even though it got a half star less, it's not because I didn't enjoy it just as much. It just was about one little nitpicky thing that I had. And really, I think some people might be able to just ignore that element of the book. It's just, to me, it's like such a shame because it could have been 100% perfect novel if it wasn't for that little thing with the scientific dialogue that went on, it felt like, for a little while in the middle there. But really, once I got past that, I was like, yeah, back to the action, and I was just very, very pleased with this read, especially because, so, I've been going to my library and getting some of these books, but I've also bought some of the Valiant Court re-releases, like right here I can't wait to get into this one, I haven't read it yet, The Auctioneer, which, as you can see, they both have the Paperbacks from Hell label on the cover there. So I'm excited to get into that one, but, you know, a lot of these Paperback from Hell re-releases have been checked out from my library. And so The Nest actually was never checked out. I saw it there a couple of times, but I was hesitant to read it and pick it up because I said, I kind of want to go and look for other Valiant Court re-releases of the Paperbacks from Hell because, you know, I'm not sure I can handle the roach story. I'm not sure if I could really handle this. Like, what if it just skeeves me out so much that I'm like, I can't take it. It's like too horrific. But it was horrific, but I could get past it. I survived it. So to me, I'm so glad I got over that hesitancy and checked it out from the library. And again, I'm going to be looking for this because I'd love to own an actual copy. A girl can dream. I'm a new collector, so I'd be freaking lucky to just happen to find one in the wild at a bookstore. But we'll see. You never know. That's the beauty of it. You never know when you're treasure hunting what you'll find. So again, guys, just to wrap it up, vivid imagery, creepy but eloquent prose, which is so funny, and just a very overall zany story, but that had some impactful stuff. So overall, I think I'm going to remember this for a long time, and I do recommend it very highly. And if you've watched this whole time, thank you so much, because I can't even tell you how much I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. It means the world to me. I've been having such a fun time talking about books on the YouTube channel, which it's new. So I'm a book newbie, so please bear with this newbie, but I'm a long-time YouTuber. I've been, you know, on YouTube making videos about other stuff for a long time, including pop culture, and then before that, wrestling. So I'm no newbie when it comes to YouTube, at least. So please consider, if you like it, to share, sub, hit that bell. But okay, let's get into my parents. Why do they have a bug wall? Like I said, the Halloween party. And I'm going to give you some sneak peek footage of the bug wall that's set up right now. It's nowhere close to what it's supposed to be. The usual way it's set up, like during the actual month of October, is way more bugs on the wall. And the funny thing is, so the whole reason my dad and I went up in the attic is because we have these 5-inch roaches, which are way more accurate to the size of the roaches in the book. They're not massive like this pool float is 70 inches long. They are more like 5 inches long, it describes in the book. So, you know, still big for a roach, but not like monstrous like this float here. So I knew my dad had these roaches because years ago, one of our first Halloween parties, we had these giant like vinyl slippery, I don't even know what you call them, roaches. And we were trying to stick them on a wall. We had a whole bunch. We're going to do a line of the roaches going up and across the wall. And we had such a hard time sticking these roaches to my parents' wall for the Halloween party. So first we put Velcro on the bottom of the roaches and on the wall. We tried to stick it, but it kept falling off. The roaches were just too slippery. the material that they were made of course these are fake roaches. That goes without saying. I hope you guys know this. So they would just fall off the wall. And so literally my mom and I spent hours and hours back in the day trying to adhere these roaches to the wall. What we ended up doing, and this is insane, and I had to help her, was sew a strip of Velcro into the roach because it wouldn't just stick on. So my mom took a big ass needle that was very thick because the material was not like fabric. It was hard to get through. So she literally painstakingly threaded this freaking Velcro into the bottom of like 12, 13, 14 roaches, and then we adhered the other side of the Velcro to the wall in a line, and then we stuck them on, and it was great. And it stayed up on our wall for like 2 years straight, because we didn't take them off because we had gone through all that trouble, and we're like, well, we don't want to re-damage the wall by taking it on and off and all this. So we left them up. We kind of ruined parts of the wall because of that, so I think my dad hides it now with other things. But yeah, we went through a lot of trouble to put up some fake roaches, and yet my dad and I cannot find those roaches. So they're up in the attic somewhere. So today, when I was planning on making this video, I went over there, I said, Dad, please help me find the fake roaches. He knew exactly what I was talking about. We went up in the attic, dug all around, found other bugs like spiders, tons of fake spiders, and he was so excited because he had been looking for these fake flies for this fly display he has. I think it's around the classic The Fly poster, and it's missing flies right now. He couldn't find them. I found them upstairs for him in the attic, and he's like, my flies! And I'm like, yeah, the flies, but we're looking for my roaches. And so it was a whole big fun thing, and I was like, we're such a weird family, I told him. I said, what's wrong with us? Who has, like, mass amounts of fake bugs in their house, on the wall all year round, and also up in the attic? Not only fake bugs, but we've got so much other Halloween decorations. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars that my dad has spent over the last 10 years on this party. Really, because he was egged on by me. I don't help his addictions with shopping and decorating because we both feed into each other when it comes to the Halloween stuff. We're like, yeah, let's do this, let's put up that, let's buy this. Lots of cool stuff. I got to see my Jason Voorhees piece that I have in the attic too. I saw that up there. So lots of good stuff in the attic, but I didn't find my 5-inch roaches. I only found this 70-inch pool float roach that I have down here. By the way, took me 30 minutes to blow up. Luckily, I thought I was gonna have to do it like myself. I found a hand pump, and I used the hand pump, but it still took 30 minutes. It's gonna take forever. I hope you guys enjoyed the stupid roach stuff that I did, because I really wanted to have a fake roach that was like on my shoulder. That was just 5 inches, not freaking 70, which, whatever. It worked out though, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for bearing with me because I like to be silly and I like to have a fun, good time and laugh and stuff. So overall, this book gets 2 thumbs up, 4.5 stars out of 5. Good time, recommended 100% if you can handle it. That's my disclaimer. If you can handle bugs, killing people, crawling into ears, into brains, etc., then check it out. Also animals. There is a warning, you know, something bad happens to a cute little doggy. And I hate that, but I mean, a lot of books that happens and people die too. So no one's safe, as I said earlier, man, woman, child, because, you know, children aren't safe from them either. Nobody. Not animals, not children. It's sad, but that's what makes this novel so effective. Please check it out if you haven't already. And if you have, please let me know what you think about it in the comments below. In the depths of YouTube hell down there below. Let me know what you think. I'd love to know. And if you haven't read it and do end up reading it, tweet at me at superkickinit. I want to know about your experience. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. And keep on killing it. I'll see you next time. Bye.